Peace. I wanted to share my testimony about how I came to walk with Jesus because I've been recently watching a lot of video blogs, testimonial video blogs, and I love those video blogs. I think they're amazing. I think it takes a lot of courage for someone to talk about their testimony, and talk about how Jesus changed their lives and how they are a new person, a new creation, a new entity, if you will. It's pretty amazing, and it takes a lot of courage because most people think that people who have this amazing conversion and turn to Jesus, something's wrong with them. Like, they either brainwash or they're going crazy or they want attention or whatever the case may be. So the odds are against these people. So I think they have a lot of courage because they don't really care. They just care more about, sharing their experience they have with God, with the broader world. And I think that's pretty amazing. And I'm guilty of being one of those people that's afraid to talk about my faith in God because I don't want people to think I'm insane, because people always thought I was crazy my whole life. I always been a total weirdo punk rock goth person, and so I always had the stigma of being just weird, and I didn't want to add any more weirdness to me, so I didn't want to whip out my faith on people and say, listen, I believe in Jesus. I believe everything that Jesus said is true and everything, and I want to follow Jesus and I want to share Jesus with you. I haven't been able to do that, but in recent years, I feel like I want to. I feel like I need to and I have to because it's something that I really believe in wholeheartedly with my whole heart. But it's also something that I think other people would benefit from and people would become different people and it will be healing to people, so I want to share it like those people they share their video blogs and I watch it, their video blogs, their testimonial video blogs, and I get inspired. I want to be able to inspire people. There was a time a few years ago that I was making a bunch of videos about God, and then I post them. Then I just went to this phase where I just deleted all my video blogs, and I go, I'm not going to share my faith with anyone. It's pointless. People are not going to care anyway. And another thing that's inspired me to want to talk about my testimonial, my testament, my my walk with God is that I was at my friend's house and he's like got really, really sick. He has liver disease and all this stuff. And then I said, oh, thank you. God healed you. And he's like, don't talk about God. I don't want to hear that crap. And he got really upset and everything. And I thought that was funny because I experienced that a lot in the past when I tell people I will mention God, I will mention Jesus, and people get offended really quick, really easily because they don't had a bad experience, Christian experience with Christians, so I get that and everything, but there got to be something behind that, why that happens all the time, why people are so offended when you mention Jesus, like how about if you're not trying to convert people? I would never try to convert anyone. I would just try to share my experience with people when people get so offended by it, it's such a hard thing. So I think it's real. There's something behind it, But how I came to believe in God, I grew up believing in God. Actually, I came from a very devout Christian family. We went to Bible study, prayers, Sunday and everything, and we prayed at night, at the middle of the day, and in the morning when we got up, we prayed. So I kind of grew up around it. But you know how it is when you grow up in a family like that. Some of the kids stay Christian, some of the kids don't, but me, I always resonated with me my whole life, But I did have two conversions. They changed my whole entire life, and I think I had a recent third one recently. But my first conversion was a long time ago. I was like walking. I was in the village in New York City, and I was just really super punk rock and goth and everything, and there was this guy, he had chalk in his hand, and he was drawing the Virgin Mary on the floor, like really beautiful mosaic, it was so beautiful. And I was staring at it, and this really beautiful girl started talking to me, and I was like, why is this girl talking to me? And she started saying, "Oh, that's the Virgin Mary. That's the Mother of God." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. I'm Catholic." And so we started talking. She's like, "Yeah, but so you're Catholic, but how do you feel about Jesus?" And I go, "I don't know, because Catholics don't really talk about Jesus." Anyhow, so she invited me to go to church, and I only went because I wanted to see her again. 'Cause I thought she was real pretty and stuff. You know how it is when you're a young guy and stuff. And so I ended up going to that church. When I went to that church, it was actually the International Church of Christ. That's considered a cult now and stuff. But that was the first church that I had joined. And I remember hanging out, going to church. The first thing that struck me when I went to this church is how people sung. They were sung these songs, and the songs are like so beautiful, so amazingly beautiful. And I remember how it like healed my heart, like something happened to me listening to the song. And then the sermon, one time I went like the next a few Sundays, and then the preacher was talking. He was talking about how, when you have Jesus in your life, people will really not like you and everything. And I thought that was kind of a weird notion that someone would like you just because you're into Jesus. And so at the time I had a girlfriend. She was this Puerto Rican, beautiful goth girl. And I remember like I would listen to like Christian music and stuff, and she was coming over to the house. We were going to a goth club, and at that time I was going to church on Sunday, but I was still going to golf clubs. I was still hanging out with my girlfriend, and going to clubs and everything. And but I was kind of like trying to like not go because the people in the church are saying, well, golf clubs you shouldn't go and this and everything. Not that anything's wrong with it, but I should. They were telling me I should focus more on God opposed to like going to golf clubs and everything. And so when she came in, I was like, "Do you feel beautiful?" I said something like that, and I mentioned God, and she got so mad and like cursed at me and said, "I don't want to hear about that God shit." And I remember that's the first time I saw a person be struck down by the word of God, and it was such a weird thing and everything, and I was like, well, I gotta be some truth to this, because she got so offended so easily just because I mentioned Jesus when I mentioned God. And so I continued to go to church, and this church turned out to be a cult. And so they was like, oh, you should leave that girl and all this stuff. So I ended up leaving the church, and then I kind of fell away, and then I didn't, but I kind of, well, I got a job in a Christian bookstore after that, and then I was working in the bookstore, and then I would read a lot, and I was kind of like this Christian, solitary Christian person where I wanted to be a Christian, but I didn't have a church. I didn't have a home, and I didn't have a church. And so I would just read about God and everything. And so my second conversion is when I moved to Colorado, and I was walking. I was with my girlfriend. I was dating this punk girl, and she was all punk rock and everything. And we were walking, and I saw this guy that looked just like the white Jesus, with the blue eyes and blonde hair. And I go, oh God, you look just like Jesus. And so he says, do you know who Jesus is? And he started talking to me about Jesus. And he told me, he go, I went to the Rainbow Gathering, and I noticed that everyone in the Rainbow Gathering wanted something. But I'm going to tell you, there's one person that never wanted anything, and that's Jesus. Jesus never wanted anything. And I thought that was really an amazing inclination. It's like, how can someone not want something with such wanting? Humans are such coveted creatures. And so I just thought that just kind of like converted me instantly, because I was like, my whole life, my biggest problem always been that I wanted stuff, that I covet stuff, that I desire stuff. How about if I lived this life where all I wanted was to love God, but I didn't want to covet God. I just wanted to be in God's presence. Then I ran across that chapter, or the opening lines from St. Augustine's book, the city of God, when he's like restless until I rest in God. And I was like, wow, that's what he meant. He meant that, all his problems or his sins has to do with restlessness. But when you rest in God, you don't have those issues, and you still have those issues, but you have rest in the notion that God's there for you and God's gonna heal you. So I just thought that was a really beautiful thing. And so he told me about this church that was called Prodigal Project in San Francisco. So we ended up going to San Francisco, me and my girlfriend. We end up, I end up quitting my job. We bought this like van and we just travel all over America, but we end up in San Francisco. And we tried to join this church, and the people that ran the church didn't really like us because we looked punk rock and goth and everything, and they were kind of like hippies and everything, and so I was really disappointed, and I kind of fell away for a long time. And what happened when I was in San Francisco, I started to do street ministry where I would be on the street and I would talk to people about God and I would share Jesus with people. But then the people running the church kept saying that I shouldn't be on the street, I shouldn't be homeless, I should get a job and all that stuff. So I felt like they were stopping me from doing street ministry. And so I was like, screw this, I don't want to be a Christian anymore. So then I stopped for like a few years, and then for a really long time. And then I pretty much been struggling with my walk with God, because I felt, well, if people who are not Christian are not going to accept me, and then I go to the Christian people and they don't even accept me, so why am I trying to be a Christian? So I pretty much, gave up on it and stuff. And then for a very long time, and also I started dating. I don't know what it is, but atheist girls are really drawn to me. And so, mostly every girlfriend I ever have is atheist, staunch atheist. And I rarely, almost never meet Christian girl or date Christian girls. And I think that's always been one of my biggest problems because I'm a very complacent person. So when I'm in a relationship, I tend to do what the person that I'm with wants me to do. So if she's an atheist, I will become an atheist. I won't become an atheist, but I would be more, closer to her than I would be closer to me having a faith in something because my girlfriend doesn't have a faith. I know it's kind of like not a good way to be. I just always been like that ever since I was a kid. I always been like that. So and you can even find a Christian girl and be like that too. I'm not saying that Christian girls are better than atheist girls, but if I want to be one with God or walk with God, I should be with someone that shares a faith with me. That's what I always think. But I think that's why I never went back because I always was in these relationships. I was like, well, I don't want to go because she's not going to go or whatever. And then after a while, the years started passing, and I just forgot about it for a really long time. And so in the back of my mind, I kept saying to myself that I want to I keep hearing noise in the background, that I want to go back to church and everything. So I went to this church. I live in Colorado. I went to this church called Flatirons Church. It's a church that has like thousands of people. It's a mega church. And when I was in that church, that was like, I think probably my third, hold on for a second.